You are smarter than most people in the room. You have always known this. Not as arrogance, as a quiet, uncomfortable fact that has followed you your entire life. You see the angles others miss. You think 3 steps ahead. You understand the complexity of situations that other people summarize in a sentence and move on from. And yet, you are not where you should be. Not by your own measure. Not by the measure of what you know you are capable of. You have watched people with half your intelligence move faster, build more, risk more, and arrive at destinations you have been planning to reach for years. And somewhere in the back of that extraordinary mind of yours, a question has been forming. A question you have been afraid to ask out loud because the answer might be the most uncomfortable thing you have ever had to face. What if the problem is not that you are not smart enough? What if the problem is that you are too smart, and your intelligence has been quietly, methodically, and very effectively destroying you from the inside? In 1898, a boy was born in Boston with the highest IQ ever recorded in human history. Estimated between 250 and 300, 50 to 100 points higher than Einstein. By 18 months, he could read the New York Times. By 8, he spoke 8 languages. At 11, he entered Harvard, the youngest student in the university's history. His name was William James Sidis. He died at 46, alone, penniless, working as a clerk in a small office. His extraordinary mind had produced almost nothing that the world could use. He had spent his life running from his own intelligence, hiding it, suppressing it, disguising it, because the weight of what he was capable of had become completely unbearable. This is not just his story. It is the story of every intelligent person who has ever let their mind become their prison. Welcome to Silent Mind Academy. The first way intelligence kills you is so quiet you have probably never noticed it happening. It happens in the gap between thinking and doing. For a person of average intelligence, this gap is small. They see an opportunity. They assess it briefly. They act. The assessment takes seconds because they simply do not have the cognitive machinery to model every possible outcome. This is not a weakness. In most situations, it is a profound advantage. For the intelligent mind, the gap is vast, and it grows wider every year. You do not just see the opportunity. You see every possible version of the opportunity. You see the 17 ways it could go wrong. The 3 hidden variables that nobody else has noticed. The second and third order consequences that will not become visible until it is too late. You see the full landscape, and the full landscape is terrifying. Psychologists call this analysis paralysis. But that clinical phrase does not capture what it actually feels like from the inside. From the inside, it feels like responsibility, like thoroughness, like you are simply being careful, doing what intelligent people are supposed to do, which is think before they act. But here is what the research actually shows. Studies consistently find that overthinking, the kind of deep, recursive, multivariable thinking that intelligent people do naturally, leads not to better decisions, but to more stress, more indecision, and more missed opportunities. The extra thinking does not produce extra accuracy. It produces extra paralysis. The Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky diagnosed this problem 150 years before the psychology research confirmed it. In his novella Notes from Underground, he created a character, simply called the Underground Man, who was one of the most psychologically accurate portraits of a certain kind of intelligence ever written. The Underground Man is brilliant. He sees everything with excruciating clarity. He understands people's motivations before they understand themselves. He can predict the outcome of every social interaction before it happens. And he does nothing. He cannot act. Not because he is weak or lazy, but because his intelligence has made action feel impossible. He has thought his way into a corner so sophisticated that every exit has been analyzed and found flawed before he has taken a single step. Dostoevsky called this the disease of consciousness. The idea that a certain level of awareness, a certain depth of understanding, makes direct action not just difficult, but psychologically intolerable. The man of action, Dostoevsky wrote, acts because he is limited. He does not see enough to be stopped. But the intelligent man sees everything and is stopped by everything he sees. You know this feeling. You have felt it. The business you have been planning for 3 years. The conversation you have needed to have for months. The work you have been preparing to begin when the conditions are finally right. The conditions will never be right. Because your intelligence will always find a reason they are not. The second weapon your intelligence uses against you is perfectionism. And it is perhaps the most elegant trap ever constructed, because it disguises itself as a virtue so completely that most intelligent people defend it as a strength until the day they die. Perfectionism sounds like high standards. It sounds like care. It sounds like the refusal to settle for mediocre work in a mediocre world. It is none of these things. Psychologist Brené Brown spent years researching the relationship between perfectionism and achievement. What she found should stop every intelligent person cold. Perfectionism, she concluded, is not the pursuit of excellence. It is a form of control anxiety, a sophisticated defense mechanism that intelligent people use to avoid the vulnerability of being judged. If you never finish, you can never fail. If you never publish, no one can criticize. If you never begin, your potential remains intact, uncontested, permanently preserved in the amber of what you might have done. The intelligence makes the perfectionism worse because intelligence can always find something wrong. You can see every flaw in your work that the average person would miss entirely. Your taste, your ability to recognize what great looks like, is always ahead of your current ability to produce it. And so every time you look at what you have made, your intelligent mind holds it up against the ideal version and finds it lacking. William Sidis understood this torture intimately. He produced work, extraordinary work, and then destroyed it. He wrote books under aliases so that his real name would not be attached to anything imperfect. He hid his intelligence from employers, from neighbors, from everyone, because the gap between what he knew he could theoretically produce and what he was actually producing was too painful to expose to the world. He did not fail because he lacked ability. He failed because his ability to imagine perfection was so precise that anything short of it felt like public humiliation. The York University research confirms this pattern across thousands of subjects. High IQ and perfectionist tendencies are directly correlated. The smarter you are, the more likely you are to be trapped by perfectionism. Not because intelligence causes perfectionism, but because intelligence gives perfectionism its most sophisticated ammunition. You can always see why it is not good enough yet. And not good enough yet is where brilliant ideas go to die. In notebooks, in half-finished drafts, in conversations that were never started, in businesses that were never launched, in relationships that were never pursued because the timing was not quite right, the circumstances not quite perfect, the person not quite exactly what you had imagined. Your perfectionism is not protecting your standards. It is protecting your ego from the risk of being seen and found wanting. The third and most insidious weapon is one that nobody talks about because it has no simple name. Call it hyperawareness, the curse of seeing too much. Intelligent people do not just think more. They perceive more. They notice the subtle shift in someone's expression that reveals they are lying. They feel the undercurrents of a room that other people are completely unaware of. They see the structural flaws in an argument that the speaker themselves has not noticed. They read the subtext of a conversation while simultaneously processing the text. This sounds like a gift. It is not. Or rather, it stops being a gift at a certain threshold and becomes something closer to a chronic low-grade illness. The psychologist Elaine Aron identified a trait she called high sensitivity, a nervous system wired to process stimuli more deeply than average. Highly intelligent people frequently overlap with this category. They process everything more deeply, which means they are affected more deeply by everything. Criticism lands harder. Failure feels more devastating. The gap between how things are and how they should be is more visible, more constant, more unbearable. This is what destroyed David Foster Wallace, one of the most brilliant writers of the 20th century. Wallace could see the machinery of human experience with a precision that bordered on the supernatural. His prose could capture the exact texture of a thought in motion, the precise phenomenology of consciousness, in ways that no writer before him had managed. And it killed him, not metaphorically. The same mind that produced Infinite Jest, one of the most celebrated novels of its era, could not be turned off, could not stop processing, could not stop seeing. The hyper-awareness that made him extraordinary made ordinary life almost unbearable. He described depression not as sadness, but as a total inability to stop thinking, a mind that had become a machine that could not be switched off. The research supports this. Studies consistently find higher rates of anxiety, depression, and existential distress among highly intelligent individuals, not despite their intelligence, but because of it. The mind that sees more suffers more. The mind that understands the full complexity of existence is the mind most burdened by that complexity. Most people are protected from the full weight of existence by their limited ability to perceive it. The intelligent person has no such protection. Let us return to William Sidis, because his story is not just a tragic curiosity. It is the most complete case study in the psychology of intelligence destroying itself that history has produced. At 16, Sidis graduated Harvard with honors. The press surrounded him. Journalists wrote breathless profiles. The public expected greatness, the kind of greatness that would justify the mythology that had been built around him since childhood. Sidis collapsed under the weight of it. Not immediately, not dramatically, quietly. The way intelligent people always collapse, from the inside, invisibly, in ways that look from the outside like failure of will or character, but are actually something far more specific and far more tragic. He could not act without feeling that every action was being measured against the impossible standard of what someone with his intelligence should be producing. He could not fail without that failure feeling like a verdict on the entire mythology of William James Sidis. He could not be ordinary, take an ordinary job, have ordinary friends, live an ordinary day, without the crushing awareness that this ordinary life was a betrayal of something enormous. He chose to disappear instead. He took menial jobs under false names. He moved repeatedly to avoid recognition. He pursued obsessive interests, collecting streetcar transfers, writing about Native American cosmology, not because these were lesser passions, but because they were his. They were not attached to the mythology. They were not measured against the standard. They were simply what he wanted to do. And in doing so, he committed the final act of intelligence destroying itself. He had a mind capable of contributing something genuinely extraordinary to human understanding, and he spent it in hiding. Not because he was broken, because he was overwhelmed by the gap between what he was and what he knew he could theoretically be. The tragedy of Sidis is not that he wasted his intelligence. It is that his intelligence made him unable to use it. Dostoevsky did not just diagnose the disease. He pointed toward the cure, though he did it obliquely, in the way that great writers always do. The underground man is not the hero of Notes from Underground. He is a warning. And the warning is not, do not be intelligent. It is, do not let your intelligence become your identity. The underground man's fundamental problem is not that he thinks too much. It is that he has made thinking his entire self. His intelligence is not something he has. It is everything he is. And because it is everything he is, he cannot risk it, cannot expose it to failure, cannot allow it to be seen and found insufficient. This is the trap. And the exit from the trap is the same regardless of how intelligent you are. You must separate what you are from what you can do. Your intelligence is a tool. It is not your soul. It is not your worth. It is not the measure of your right to exist, or to fail, or to be imperfect in public. The moment you allow your intelligence to become your identity, the moment your self-worth becomes attached to the quality of your thinking, You have handed your intelligence the keys to your destruction. Because a mind that must always be seen as brilliant cannot afford to be wrong, cannot afford to fail, cannot afford to begin something it might not be able to finish perfectly. The research on what psychologist Carol Dweck calls fixed mindset captures this precisely. People who believe their intelligence is a fixed trait, something they have, rather than something they develop, consistently underperform people of similar ability who hold a growth mindset. Not because they are less intelligent, because they are protecting their intelligence rather than using it. Dostoevsky's prescription, hidden in the underground man's failure, is this: you must be willing to be stupid. You must be willing to act before you have thought it through completely. You must be willing to produce imperfect work, make imperfect decisions, have imperfect conversations, and survive the imperfection. Not despite your intelligence, in full possession of it. This is not a checklist. There are no 5 easy steps. There are 3 permanent shifts, and they require something your intelligence will resist with everything it has. Shift 1. Use your intelligence to act, not to avoid acting. Your mind's job is not to find all the reasons something might fail. That is a misuse of the tool. Redirect your intelligence toward the question: what is the smallest possible action I can take right now? Not the perfect action, not the complete action, the smallest one. Intelligence applied to the question of how to start is intelligence finally being used for its actual purpose. Shift 2. Separate your worth from your output. Sidis died believing that anything he produced that was less than extraordinary was a betrayal of who he was. You are not your work. You are not your ideas. You are not your IQ score or your ability to think faster than the people around you. You are a person who has a tool called intelligence. And like any tool, it can be used well or poorly, carefully or recklessly, in service of life or in opposition to it. Shift 3. Choose action over understanding. The intelligent mind always wants to understand more before it acts. One more book, one more analysis, one more month of preparation. The shift required is the most difficult one, the decision to act from incomplete understanding. Not because understanding does not matter, but because understanding without action is just a more sophisticated form of hiding. William Sidis died at 46. In his apartment, they found hundreds of pages of writing, under aliases, under pen names, under every disguise his intelligence could construct to protect itself from being seen and judged. Some of it was extraordinary. None of it mattered. Because he had spent his life believing that his intelligence required protection rather than expression, that it was too valuable to risk, too important to expose to failure. Your intelligence is not a treasure to be guarded. It is a muscle that dies without use. It is a fire that goes out if it is never allowed to burn anything. The most intelligent thing you can do, the act that requires more intelligence than any analysis, any calculation, any sophisticated model of possible outcomes, is to begin. Imperfectly, incompletely, without knowing how it ends. Your mind is not your enemy, but you have been using it like one. Stop protecting it. Start using it. Welcome to Silent Mind Academy.